Well, we're going to have some scripture that's not lectionary, but it applied to one of our experiences at the work site. And I sense God was lifting his story about Moses up that might be helpful for us, maybe helpful for someone else. We're grateful that he is going to read the scriptures. Liz, maybe you can hold that mic for her. You got it.
This is from Exodus 17, verses 8 and 13. Then Amalek came and followed Israel at Moses said to Joshua, "Choose some men for us and go out, fight Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill with the staff of God in my hand." So Joshua did as Moses told him and followed Amalek, while Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. Whenever Moses held up his hand, Israel prevailed, but whenever he lowered his hand, Amalek prevailed. But Moses' hand grew weary, so they took a stone and put it under him in the staff. Aaron and Hur held up his hands, one on one side and one on the other side, so his hands were steady until the sun set. And Joshua defeated Amalek and his people with the sword.
Great, thank you. So this is a picture of Moses. And on either side is Aaron and Hur. Moses was sent out, the Israelites were sent out to fight Amalek. And whenever Moses would hold his hands up with his staff, the Israelites would win in the battle. His arms got tired. When he lowered his hands, the Israelites would start to lose the battle against Amalek. So Aaron and Hur sat Moses down on a rock, and they stood on either side of Moses to keep his arms up. And it lasted the whole day. And because Moses had the help on either side of keeping his arms up, the Israelites won that battle. So this passage came to mind when we were working on a ceiling in a bathroom, and we were bringing in sheetrock. How big are the biggest sheetrocks, Carl?
4 foot by 8 foot.
4 foot by 8 foot. And you can imagine that it doesn't always fit where you want it on the first try. And so we had 2 ladders in this very little bathroom, 5 of us. And we would lift up the sheetrock and hold it there. Sometimes we'd have to hold it with our head because our arms would get tired. And we would have to say to our teammates, "I'm tired, can you help?" And we would climb down the ladder and someone else would get up there and hold it before we could drill it in. Sometimes we get tired and weary and we need help. And it's okay to ask for help. We learned to ask for help on our work team. This passage from Exodus says that God provides help when our arms get weary. God sends to us errands, and God sends to us her to help us carry the load, whatever the load is that each of us are carrying. We also had a sense this week that we were the errands, and we were the hers for one another, but also for our families that we were hosted by, and for the greater community of Friendship, New York, which is really hurting and kind of a ghost town on Main Street. People are facing some desperation, and we came in just to try and be a little glimpse of hope and solidarity and to say, we'll help you keep your arms up. So we're going to share some brief glimpses, but I hope you'll seek out youth and adults who are on this year's team and ask more questions afterwards, maybe when we're having some refreshments out front. And we're going to pass the microphone so that we can hear some of these stories. This is just a brief shot of us last Sunday at 7 a.m. when we left. We met in the back parking lot of the church, loaded up 2 vans, and took off about 5 hours out to Friendship, New York. Carl, I think this one's you.
Okay, this is Team Small but Mighty. Our task was to, so we have Cole, Liz, Mia, myself, and Pastor Jack on this thing. What else can I say about it? It was a bathroom that was in dire need of a new ceiling, and as much as the homeowner had put up some sheetrock on the walls, we needed to redo some of that and certainly do all the taping and spackling on it.
Good. Let's just see who that is.
So this is Cole, and he's cleaning out some of the debris that was left from the previous ceiling. And we had to do a demo so you can kind of see the rafters up above.
This was probably our first day there, and we were just taking down the ceiling so we could get ready to put it in. And then this is when we had to spackle it, and so we just put spackle wherever there was gaps and holes in the ceiling.
It was the first time that Mia spackled. She was known at the end of the week as the spackle queen. Mad skills. Carl, that's you. You're gonna just talk about that.
Yes, as we went along, certainly our skills and our ability to be standing on top of ladders. What can I say? This was us working.
So in this picture, Carl is holding some of the sheetrock, and I'm cutting a hole because there were some light fixtures and electrical work that we had to leave some room for. And these holes needed a little bit of sawing, so we lift up a sheet of sheetrock. Then we'd have to take it down and sand off some, and put it back up and see if the hole would fit.
It fit.
Here's another picture of some spackling. And you have to make sure that it's really even so that when you put a layer of paint over it, then it's like a flat sheet.
Okay, here's our whole team again. I wanted to digress with pictures just to tell a story about the door lock. This bathroom had a door mechanism latch that dated from probably the turn of the previous century, probably around 1900. And when we got there, actually the homeowner mentioned that it didn't really work. And she was right, it didn't work. And it seemed like a simple fix, where you just needed some screws and bigger screws to fasten it tightly against the door. And Pastor Jeff took on that task. And again, this is on price. There's a lot of things in our initial directive of what we're supposed to do. So it's a lot of it's finding basic type of repairs. Jeff said about finding some screws, fixing the screw holes, screwed it tightly against the door. And with him and Liz inside the bathroom, closed the door to see how it worked. And they were locked inside. So, and there's no way to open that door from the outside. So, anyway, we solved that little problem. And then, Pastor Jeff and I took the latch. We were outside on the lawn. I was holding the whole thing, and we took apart the mechanism. And one of those life lessons that everybody knows: don't do something like that over the lawn, because it promptly got away from me, and we had parts spilling over the lawn. So we found those. We found them all finally. back together. And end of story here is Pastor Jeff put it back on the door, tried it before he closed the door. And it works as good as new. So there's probably some analogy of locks and life here, but that kind of escapes me at the moment. Anyway, it was a fun moment.
There is a story, by the way, of Jesus going through locked doors to the disciples, right? He says, "Peace be with you." We needed Jesus to come through that locked door and say, "I know you're locked in, but peace be with you."
So these are some razor blades from around the 1920s that fell out of the ceiling when we were taking it apart. And you would think, why are there razor blades in the ceiling? But it's because there used to be medicine cabinets that were built into the wall, and they would have little slits to drop your old razor blades into it. And so we tried to see how much these were worth. We haven't been very successful, but one little detail is it says that it's rustless, and there is in fact rust on them.
I saw a couple of you nodding. Do you remember those little slits in the wall where you put the old razor blades? Just raise your hand. Wow. All right, so after the worship service, tell us your experience with those. So this is a picture of a newspaper that also fell out of the ceiling from 1925, the Olean Times. Olean is a town maybe 20 minutes away from Friendship. And we're going to put this up on our website later today after it's edited, but you can zoom in on this and you can see the box scores for the Indians. You can see the box score for the Yankees. This is the Yankees that had Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig playing for them. And then if you look to the right, the headline is People's Methodist Episcopal Church in win over the Presbyterians. It was a softball league, which was big news back then. Okay.
I think we're moving on to, give me the tiny picture here. Moving on to R2. Yeah, there we go. Do it that way. So this, the project was a homeowner that we had the year before. We fixed her roof last year. And this year, she needed some extra work. Her husband just recently died, and she couldn't do some things. So we were tasked to fix her chimney, a couple other little things, and primarily the kitchen floor had rotted. So that's basically the way the projects go at RISE. You get a list of a couple of things, end up doing about 15. Which is fine, because that's what we do. We keep busy, and we go around, and we just, okay, hey, this needs to be done, that needs to be done, and so forth, and we just do it. And she was extremely appreciative, especially in the time, her husband only died like a month ago. So she was in a grieving period, of course. And we came in and started the project. And this is us just hanging around the saw and me hoping that nobody gets chopped with the saw. Yeah, Esther, here you go, kid.
So there was a big hole floor, so we had to basically tear all of the hardwood out of it so we could make the hole able to fit wood into it to make it level with the floor that we were going on. And this was us doing the entire process of trying to make the wood the right shape to fit in it, and it took a lot of back and forth. That's Anna.
Okay, more of the same, but on vinyl. Okay, step back. So this is one of the projects that were added on. If you look up underneath the soffits there, those soffits were hanging down. And this woman constantly got squirrels and birds and bees and all kinds of wildlife flying in there and making their little homes. So Shelley and I took it upon ourselves to force the soffit back up. It But it's probably, you know, it showed dirty jobs. This was probably the dirtiest part of this job, because all that stuff just kept raining down, you know. And I don't usually wear a mask. I know I'm supposed to, whatever. So anyway, we pushed the soffits back up, and later on in the project, we actually put new wood across the top so she would not get any more animals in there. And yeah, I was kind of wishing that Annika would be here to describe this, because you'll understand what I mean when we get to the last picture. This is Dave Meyer helping us out the way that Dave Meyer does. He does all this great work up there at Becky, and the whole staff is great. But we're setting up the ladders to go all the way up to the top chimney roof, because the chimney had, again, she had birds fly down into the chimney, so we needed to cap that, and then we needed to get up there and position the chimney so it would stay, and also seal it. So flip over to the next one. And this picture here is Annika and Dave up on top, and you can just see the glorious countryside in this area of the world, and that was probably one of our greatest pictures taken. But you can see that the chimney is now sealed. No birds can fly in. It's a non-working chimney, but it didn't matter. We wanted to block out the birds and fix the chimney. And I think that's Esther, maybe. There you go, kid.
So during school training, we made this for class, so we could today take it to our.
So we got to the site on Monday, and we were, examining all the stuff we had to do for the week. One thing the homeowner mentioned was that there was a 220-volt electrical wire running below part of the floor. I think we have to watch out for that. Sometimes foreshadowing is relatively obvious. So on Tuesday, our plan after lunch was we wanted to have all of the plywood down by 3:30, so we could go for ice cream. And when we didn't make that deadline, we were already, very tired and stressed. We just wanted to get it done. And we finally get the last board in, start screwing it down. I go to put in literally the last screw of the day, right through the wire, doesn't even just hit the wire, it hits the copper inside the wire. Okay, it's a perfect shot. Couldn't replicate it. And smoke just starts coming out of the outlet. And so we're panicking, quick, get the screw out of the wire. And we try plugging in the stove to see if it works. It doesn't work. So we have a lot of work to do this. I take out the board, take out all the other screws, we start looking at it. And what we discover is that the wiring was so poorly done that it was a fire hazard, right? Like, you can't just have a wire in the floor. So we turn off the circuit breaker, and next day we come back, we fix it, put in the new wire, and so I think what we decided was, even though at the time it was really unfortunate that this had to happen, it actually was very much a good thing that we were able to get the circuit fixed and less dangerous, because it was definitely a fire hazard. So yeah.
All right. Starting a fire to save the house. I want to invite Dave and Becky Meyer if they're willing to come forward. None of this would happen without Dave's leadership on the RISE board. He's been the president of the RISE board for many years. And Dave and Becky do all sorts of behind-the-scenes work. Why don't you give, there's some seats right there. Let's give Dave the mic. And Dave and Becky are working throughout the week, in fact, weeks beforehand, getting things set up so that the teams can come in and do these work work projects. You want to just tell us about the team and
First of all, these guys are great. We do multiple centers starting in the summer. Historically, we've done 2 to 3 centers with usually 6 teams, 7 teams in each center. Because churches have really had trouble, especially post-COVID. We've been lower on attendance except for our own church, so it's nice to have a team of this and a couple of things that I'll try to improve. We had 4 teams in this center, 2 from Chatham, 2 from Presbyterian Church in Morristown, but we were able to assist and help 6 families, and that's really what it's about. It's the backstory. Their family, Rick, who had a house with the bathroom, has 7 children in that home, in 1 bathroom, and she 2 twins that are actually her sister that she adopted because her mother died suddenly. She has 2 sisters, twin sisters, there's 2 sets of twins in that house. They're older teens that are her other sister's sister who has a math problem, and then she has 3 of her own. So you can only imagine what it would be like to share bathrooms with not only 7 kids, but 7 girls, well, 2 girls. So they did a magnificent job. And then John Lindsay said, Nancy just lost her husband. We usually don't do overs and drives, and try to spread them out and help as many families. But I just saw her right there, and her husband had just literally died last month. She just married. I could see it was as much a visitation as it was cleaning squirrels and putting the floor down, and her setting her house on fire. So we managed to accomplish 2 of the 3, so that was really good in that perspective. The staff, very quickly, we have staff of all ages. The staff is there for support. We run supplies. We start with our work coordinator, who's Al Kellogg, who's one of the older gentlemen in the picture. From perspective, he's 80 years old. Our youngest staffer is a freshman in college at 18 years old, so we run the gamut. We run supplies. We have a program director that runs the program. And I think the most important purposes of programs are brief and fun for the kids, for the youth. I always say the mind can only absorb about having words, so we try to keep it short and sweet. But more importantly, have a message. The message of the weekend was we are where we're supposed to be. And Jeff actually brought that on the Sunday night service. We always start off with the Sunday night communion service, and then we finish with what's called the Buck Feast. And that seemed to resonate with everybody. We went to the church service in friendship. The staff always goes. We stay in school all week. And it was about Good Samaritans, but it was Good Samaritans. It's complicated in the history of helping others and when people necessarily don't want to help others and when people then become helping people. And so it was those 2 models of it's complicated and we are where we're supposed to be is what resonated with us, particularly as a center. We also had a second center going on at the same time in Cornell. Again, staff on supplies, and we can't do it without the involvement of churches. And my last thing is just, if you really want to get a good flavor too, we're on social media. If you look on Facebook, it's Rising Elementary Community Service Effort. Started by Dale Forrest, who was a minister in this church 42 years ago. And on Instagram, it's just Rise Service Project. And you really get the good flavor and the backstory of what goes on. And the last closing thing I'm going to say is 3 tenets that I always try to say in my 20 years of involvement in kind of meeting, and I say we can't do it without multiple people, like my wife and others. But I would say there's only 3 tenets as we engage at Rise. And the first tenet is that the teams inspire. The second tenet is that our objective is that the teens have a good opportunity to possibly bond with the families. In Hampton, sometimes it doesn't happen. Families, their example, they saw their own around. She really works nights. She is the working poor. Some people are on disability and you have an opportunity to see them. Others are working poor. They're working, they're just keeping their head afloat. So teams bond, they have an opportunity to bond with the family, and then they get the project done. That's what staff is for. And so that opportunity, I always say, is we don't come in and cure poverty, it's a triage. You put a Band-Aid on a wound, just like anybody who's had a cut. It takes a while for that wound to heal, but that Band-Aid and that soft, that feels very good. And that's what these guys did, all of these things. Very proud. I thank lastly, I thank this church for financially supporting Rise, because without that, it doesn't happen.
That's right. Thank you, Dave.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for that. So this is a picture of a hayride on Wednesday night where everyone who's at Rise from both centers come for a picnic. And so it's a big cookout hosted by the Lane family, who have many kids and a huge extended family. We got the pleasure of getting to know 7 of those grandkids very well this week. And some of them are in the picture. And at the picnic, we do some fireworks, so JP is going to tell us about this.
There's nothing to tell.
Oh, yes, there is.
That's just something I like to do for the picnic, and every year we bring up some fireworks. So, and these aren't, the small kinds. This is the big stuff. That's what Harry Lane told me. And by the way, Dave, I thought your voice was a little strained, probably from waking us up every morning at 6:30. And they also have a large bonfire that they do. So Harry Lane, part of that land is mostly farmable and usable, but it's actually a parcel of 650 acres that he has. So it's an incredible amount, and he brings us up there every Wednesday when we're there in the Weekend Rise and does this big event.
These are just some random pictures. This is Esther yesterday celebrating her birthday. Happy birthday. We're glad you were born. This is a neighbor's dog who weighs 300 pounds and sometimes would break out of his cage and lean out the window and wag his tongue at us. So we took the opportunity to do the wagging tongue picture. This is going to the Udder Place, one of the great ice cream places in upstate New York. And well, that's a long story. Ask Dave about some of the best ice cream at the Udder Place and the stories behind it. They've been very generous to Rise, very supportive of Rise over the years. And we happened to be there on July 11th, so they were giving out free Slurpees at 7-Eleven. We took full advantage. The last picture we want to put up there is a picture of the team, and we want to thank you. Your generosity, your prayers, your support, not only this year to help send these 2 teams to Rise, but throughout the last 42 years. I remember talking to Rudy Savoy last week or 2 weeks ago, and he said, "Oh, I wish I could go with you." He and adult teams used to go in the 80s and 90s and spend some weeks up there with Peggy. I know you were going. Carol, how many adults have gone to Rise here? Just raise your hand. Steve, Kathy, Dave. Someone up there mentioned Mary Cashmanian. Remembered Mary Cashmanian going up there to help. Thank you for continuing the tradition here at Chatham United Methodist Church. And thank you for not keeping it to yourselves and inviting other churches around the state of New Jersey and New York and Pennsylvania to participate in this. We'll be doing this again next year, and we will continue to depend on your financial generosity and your prayers. And some of you who may be watching this may be thinking, I want to go. If you've seen something here that makes you think, I want to go, but I don't know how to make that work, talk to me, and let's see how God leads us. Anything else you all want to say? Everybody on the roof was harnessed. Yes, we.
Yes,
make sure we were
all OSHA laws were followed properly.
May God bless the work that has been done and the work that will continue. Amen.
Thank you.